Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for another card video. Today's card is just some basic stamping and punching. So I'm going to use the Butterfly Basic set. This butterfly punch matches this small one, but I'm actually just going to use some plain old cardstock with that. But I am using a lot of stamps from this set. I'm going to start with 3 Stampin' Up! Colors and Stampin' Up! Cardstock. This is the thick white cardstock that you can use as a base. It's a lot thicker than the typical Whisper White. So I'm using Stampin' Up! Cardstock because it definitely works a lot better with Stampin' Up! Inks. You get a lot better coverage and the ink just absorbs into the paper so much better than just if you were to use Nino or something else. So I'm going to take the leaf stamp of the set and I'm going to stamp it in some garden green a couple of times off the side here. And then I'm going to clean off my stamp, and I just wanted to show you that Stampin' Up! Inks very rarely stain your stamps, and they're really easy to clean. So I just wanted to point that out. My next color is Wild Wasabi. Again, I'm going to stamp this twice, just kind of inside in between these other ones, and then finally a couple of times with my Pear Pizzazz. And so I've got some overlap going here, but I just want it to look like a bunch of leaves, so that's fine. Next, I'm going to take my Stampin' Up! White ink and some crumb cake cardstock, and I'm going to stamp this net stamp that comes with the set. And I'm going to be trimming this out, so I'm not too worried about where I'm stamping it on the paper. But I didn't like the way the first one came out, so I stamped it again. I think I just didn't have enough ink on my stamp, and it worked just fine. So I'm just going to visually stack these up. It doesn't have to be perfect. If they overlap a little, it's not a big deal. I wanted to show you how I clean white ink off my stamps. I start with a baby wipe. My baby wipes are a little dry, so I just spritz some water on my stamp and I use the baby wipe to just get the majority of the white ink off. And then I'm going to take my absorber to sort of finish it off. The problem is if you get the pigment ink on your absorber, it can make it kind of stiff. And I don't like that, so I try to use my absorber mostly for dye inks, but I can pick up the residual white ink after a baby wipe. I'm going to trim this crumb cake piece to 1/2 inch wide, and then I'm going to stamp my butterfly just with some Hero Hues black ink on Neenah cardstock. And there are dies that match this set. They're the butterfly thinlits, but I don't have those, so I'm just going to cut my butterfly out with some scissors. And then I'm going to use my punch to just punch out a couple of these in just solid black. This is black Stampin' Up! Cardstock. I'm going to use some string to add a little bit of texture to this card. This is just some white Baker's Twine by Stampin' Up! I want it to go toward the bottom, like between some of these butterflies, so I'm just sort of figuring out what the best location is going to be so I can get it in between. And once I figure that out, then I can go ahead and tie my bow. Now I'm going to take some glue dots, and I'm going to grab this glue dot off the roll with my paper piercer. I'm going to kind of roll it up as I'm doing it. And this is my little trick for tying bows to make it easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this glue dot right underneath where the knot is going to be on my bow. And once I get that placed, then I can tighten my string so that I have that first kind of knot set. So I zoomed in here so you can see a little bit better. But once you stick that first knot to the glue dot, then it's so much easier to tie the bow because you don't have to worry about holding it down with one finger while you tie the bow. I know that can be frustrating because it keeps loosening up. So this is a great way to keep it in place while you tie the bow. Anyway, so I'm going to speed this up a little bit and I'm going to tie my bow quickly. And I usually deliberate a lot when I do the bows, like make it smaller, bigger, and until I get it perfect. And this twine is pretty pliable, so you can make it exactly the shape that you want. So I'm going to trim off the tails here, and then I'm going to work on my sentiment. I'm going to use my MISTI to make sure I get this positioned right. So I'm just doing it in the lower right hand corner, and I'm going to have it touch the leaves a little bit, and that'll just sort of connect it to the rest of the design. And I just used that the Hero Arts Hero Hues black ink like I used earlier. Now my Scotch foam tape is a little bit too wide for this strip, and I do this all the time. I just cut it. So I cut off about 1/3 of it all the way up to the top. And then I'll just take that extra piece, put it back on my roll, and then I'll just use that on another project so it doesn't go to waste. So I'm going to place this across my whole crumb cake strip. I'll take the backing off, and now I'm going to position it on my card here. Now remember, this is my card base, so I really am not having too many layers here. I'm going to make sure that I put it to the right enough so that my big butterfly is all the way on the card when I place it. Now to put my butterflies on, I'm going back to my glue dots and I'm going to bend it a little bit in the center, and then when you touch the butterfly to the glue dot on the roll, and that was kind of off camera, it sticks directly to the butterfly. So I'm going to do that same thing, so sort of bend it in the middle here with your fingers, and then just touch it to the glue dot. The glue dot will stick to your butterfly, and then you can position it on your card. So I had my butterflies going in kind of different directions, so I have one below and one above, and I positioned them. One was kind of in the middle, one was to the edge, so just to make them all a little bit different. And then I'm just propping them up a little bit to look like their wings are flying off the card. And that's the card for today. So really clean and simple, easy, just a lot of stamping. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.